Hey, everyone. So, hello. I hope everyone's all right. I'm João, and here to present you another episode of I Build, Therefore I Am, this series 2, Modularity, simply put. First things first, I'm a little sorry for my voice, just a little, because it was completely worth shouting for supporting my football team on the finals. Anyway, to what really matters. Here today we have Henri, who's a co-founder at OKcontract. And OKcontract is a very nice protocol simplifying smart contract interactions for developers and businesses. They generate intuitive, embeddable front-end supporting EVM chains, rollups deployed on those. Hi, Henri, how are you?
Hey, hi, João. Hi, everybody. And yeah, I'm good. Thanks. And but by the way, this is the best reason to lose your voice. So don't worry. Not nothing to be ashamed of. And yeah, I'm good. And thanks a lot, yeah, for offering some time here and having a good chat together on modularity and blockchain technology as a whole. So
Yeah, of
excited
course,
to
it's
be
my
here.
pleasure to have you here. So first things first, can you give us a overview about OKcontract, like what it is, how it works under the hood, problems it solves, a little bit about everything you can tell us. Throw your knowledge on us.
Okay, of course, sure. So yeah, OKcontract basically you can think of it as a UX layer, basically, which connects smart contracts to front ends. So we propose something quite radical. It's basically to get rid of JavaScript to write the front ends that interact with smart contracts. And how we do it in a very, very general way is, as a developer, instead of writing a lot of manual JavaScript code, you write a concise specification of the interaction you want, and then OKcontract automatically generate plug and play front ends and or front end components, if you prefer, that you can embed anywhere. So it's starting, of course, with web UIs, web mobile, but in the future we are going to have way more ways in terms of user interfaces as well to consume these interactions. And one of these is, for instance, Telegram mini apps as well, which is coming.
That's very nice. I would like to understand a little bit of like how it works under the hood. Do you use the ABI? What's the reference that you use to create this interaction layer, this conversation between front and backend?
Yeah. Very good question. So basically, the key part of our job is the specification of the interaction. And of course, to do this, we retrieve and we analyze the ABIs of the contract that we interact to. So we start from a contract, we start from its ABI, and then we know exactly the different endpoints, the different values that are expected for this endpoint. And then in our specification, what we do is we define constraints or relations, values, expressions to compute the bit of data that we need to actually build the transaction from the user input. And we also determine what are the user inputs and basically from the specification. And just to give you an idea, the inputs basically that are left are the ones which are not specified. So everything which is specified, we compute automatically. And what is not specified, we present it to the user. And we also have, let's say, hints to let's say, specify as well, even for those inputs, how the user input should be. For instance, if your text is a long string, the input will be different. If your input is, let's say, a JSON a string, and I know that, for instance, at Cartesi, for some of your contracts, it's the case for your inbox. Basically, then we can provide, let's say, a graphical editor for JSON. So we're not doing it yet. We have a syntax highlighting for JSON, but in the future, it could be even a graphical editor inside basically the generated UI without having to write it yourself, because it's a generic component. So this is how it works. So we have the ABI, we analyze the contract, we have this language to add constraints, to add computations on basically the inputs that are given by the user. And this leads up to having built cold data. And we do this with a lot of, let's say, but we can talk about it later, properties that we can verify. So for instance, the language that we introduced, which we call lambda script, is a purely functional language, which is strongly statically typed. Happy to talk more in details about it. But basically, it gives us property whether the specification that we have written is correct or not. And when we have this, we have then a compiler which takes the specification and generates a runtime for it in a virtual machine. Basically, the virtual machine is a functional, reactive runtime environment. So every time the user input will change, basically, it will be minimally recomputed. And the last part that we have is the automated UI generation. So when we have all these constraints, the bytes that are built, we automatically generate a UI using, let's say, an internal constraint-based representation. And that's the third part of OKcontract. So that's how it works. And yeah, and if we want to be, let's say, complete in our description, we also have a last part, which are the attestations, how you can make sure that the data of the specification is correct. And then there's a lot of things, but happy to answer more questions about this.
This is really nice, right? Because you actually provide a way for the front-end developer to feel secure. The thing is, I think most of the time when we're developing Web3, we're very worried about backend being exploitable. So we take every care in there. How is this? How did this idea come to worry about that in the front end side as well? Because it's something that's often overlooked, and it kind of synergizes with the proposal of OKcontract, if I understand well, which, like, by removing JavaScript, you're softening the load on most backend developers that need to do front end as well. So they don't even have to worry about the security side, correct?
Yeah, somehow you still have to worry about security, but not, let's say, that part of security if we can automate it. And yeah, and Vitalik, in fact, wrote yesterday a blog article which mentions us as well. And he said the weakest link in a user security is often the DApp. And it's true. I think that there was a lot of attention towards securing the smart contracts, and hopefully we're getting there. There are, let's say, less and less DeFi attacks. The auditors industry gets better. The teams that write the smart contracts get better as well, and it's getting harder as well with some bits of formal verification on the smart contracts. So the smart contracts quality, let's say, of the ecosystem as a whole is improving, which leaves now a big gap in the front end. So I've been working in front end security for quite some time, and basically, if we want to sum it up, it's just a mess. Like the JavaScript itself has a lot of intricacies, and the ecosystem basically relies on tons and tons of libraries, which are, let's say, of various quality. And we just saw it like this week with Solana.js. The Solana Web3 JS, had let's say a major vulnerability planted in, and the two previous versions, in fact, were stealing private keys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Actually, I was not aware of that. Can you give it a little more context? How was this found out, and when was this found out? Do you have any idea?
I think this. I didn't look exactly, but I think that someone found out because one of their test wallet was emptied. Like, of course, if you're using an EOA as an end user, it was not going to compromise the private key because the private key stays in the EOA. But if you're writing tests, and that was the target of these attackers. If you're writing tests, you have your private key hardwired somehow in your test infrastructure. And I know some of the teams have several ETH on the net on their test on their team test wallet, and it's this kind of money that they were after. But they basically planted a way in so someone stole access to one of the developers and basically planted a copy on the whenever it found a private key to just send it to their server, and it was this is the official Solana Web3 library. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I think it ends up being an issue that people take too much for granted. The simple measures that we always took, like number of stars in a GitHub repository or number of downloads of an NPM package, without actually looking at how it works, right? Or getting real feedback on it. So that leaves it to be very dangerous.
Exactly, and this is, I would say, from an attacker or a defender in the space, the beauty of it is like the JavaScript ecosystem is so complex and the JavaScript code base is so long that basically they're out of the audit scope most of the time. Most of the project, they will audit the smart contracts, but they won't audit the front ends just because it's a lot of work. And if you change even the slightest, let's say the structure of your code, you just do a bit of refactoring, etc., you need to audit it again, and it's so long. It's usually 10 times longer than a contract. So it's extremely hard to audit properly. And of course, with all these dependencies, and there was, for instance, the Ledger SDK as well, which, if you remember last year, which was vulnerable, and all the apps had, many DeFi projects had to be frozen in catastrophe because of that. There was attacks on DeFi front ends as well, like the Badger DAO. I think Badger DAO still holds the record. Like there was 100, more than 100, maybe 120, if I'm not sure, 120 mil, I think, stolen from Badger DAO from a front end attack. So it was planted on a developer device who had a malware basically, and then they deployed a modified version of the front end, and nobody noticed for a few days. and the attackers were, let's say, waited until they had the big fish, and when they had big fish, then they stole everything.
So this is something else I would like to get your take on. Like, why are these security audits so uncommon? Is it for the complexity and the frequency that you have to do them, at least in the front end side?
Yes, I would say, and the cost. Like many people complain about the smart contract auditing cost, but the front end could be even costlier.
Wow, that's insane. So it's really nice that we have a unified solution that can actually attest for that. And I would really like you to, if you could, to give us a demo of different examples of interaction specifications and whatever you can demo to us about OKcontract.
Oh yeah, sure. So let me share my screen. Yeah. Can you see? Yeah, my screen. So basically, okay, perfect. I'm just showing the interaction hub for OKcontract, where you have lots of different contracts. So we're also giving, let's say, an ABI view of the contracts. And then what can we do? Okay, let's do, for instance, Aave on Sepolia. So hopefully, I hope I don't have my VPN. That's fine. Okay. So basically here we generate, as you can see, a UI, but what matters the most here is the specification. So what is the specification? Let's do a quick walk. Basically, we are calling a contract, and that contract here is Aave, the pool v3 on Sepolia. We're calling the deposit method. We automatically define allowances so we can manage the two-step transaction easily. So we say basically that the asset, and if we look at the values, we have 4 values defined here. The amount, which is a number of the asset, so we can automatically analyze the balances. The asset itself is a token, which is on the chain that we are going to interact with, because we are preparing the multi-chain interaction where basically you can define tokens which are on other chains as well. And here it's USDC, the test one, because we're on Sepolia. On behalf of is the wallet of the user itself, which we call $self in Lambda script. And we have a referral code, which we're not using here. But basically, for instance, we can suppose that people who create these interactions and will embed them anywhere can add their own referral code and then earn money on what they give to the protocol. So here is the full, and we have a bit of theming, but here is the full specification of the interaction. And there's strictly nothing else. And that we can see who wrote that interaction. So right now, the writer of this interaction didn't create an attestation. So the owner must attest first before other users can attest that it's a genuine interaction. We see the smart contract that we're interacting with this verified as well in the protocol. And we see that it's active. And since I have some protocol rights, I can deactivate it, for instance, if someone tells us that there is a vulnerability or a problem with the contract themselves. And here, for instance, this is what we generate. So it knows about basically my balance. And then I can deposit, for instance, to the contract. And this interaction is fully generated from this tiny specification. So I can give a lot of examples. For instance, we have on Sepolia as well. So we could do, let me refresh. We could do Uniswap v3. This one is a bit more complex. So we are calling the contract, which is the Uniswap router v3 on Sepolia. We have the method, we have the allowances as before, like we need to allow amount in of token A. Here you have preconditions which are verified purely on the client side, and which enable to, for instance, to disable the swap button if the amount is 0. You can have title elements, you can have information text, which shows here, like you will get the amount expected of token D. So if I slide more, then if I do 0.4 USDC, I will have 0.000123 ETH, which I need to approve first. And you can customize the button name as well. And you have all the values. So here we say that the value we send to the contract is 0, the native value. So we don't show a slider to send ETH as well, because it's a payable method. But we don't want to pay anything here because we are adding USDC. And it's on the other way. And basically, we define what is the amount in, what is the amount at minimum, and the parameters, the fees, how we compute the code, because we are calling, and this is quite a more complex interaction, but because we are calling another counter contract. The way Uniswap V3 works is the contract, the router itself does not provide the code. You must get the code from elsewhere. And so we call this counter contract to get the code, and it's fully transparent. So as you can see, we are not specifying the order of computation. So basically, we just add constraints, a bit like Prolog, if some people do a bit of Prolog programming. And basically, we put all these constraints together, and either it resolves to a solution, the solution being the whole interaction that we see here, or it doesn't, and we get an error if it's not well specified. And basically, this is the full code of a Uniswap V3 swap. And I've talked, for instance, to hackathon teams who said, "Wow, we spent one of our team members spent the 2 days of the hackathon building a manual front end for this, and even in the end, it didn't succeed completely. Like there were problems. But basically, here, this is everything that you have to write as a specification, not knowing anything about Uniswap V3. There's nothing in our standard library. We're not cheating whatsoever. It's not an SDK where we are calling uniswap.js, and there is somewhere uniswap.js which knows everything about the protocol. We're just doing this from the specification with no prior knowledge about the protocol itself, but of course, defining the contracts. Like we define the counter contract, and we define the contract we write to, here, the router V3 Sepolia. And here, for instance, we can see that this is the contract itself. The contract is active. Basically, we can deactivate a whole contract, which will deactivate all the interactions which call that contract, basically. So it's like cutting one contract of the let's say, the subgraph of knowledge about reputable contracts that we can call. And here you can see basically the different methods for this contract. We automatically generate any UI, even if we have no constraint about it in the specification. But then when we customize it, so here, yeah, it's a custom method, but then I can click customize interaction, and I will go to our editor. So the editor is not public yet, but we're going to open it really soon. So this is where basically we add constraint, but now we're making it a bit nicer, like to determine what are the options available. But this is how it works. So basically here we compute, for instance, the dollar value, and we can say, okay, 0. I don't know if it makes sense, but if you say 0, then you see the different elements from the UI disappear. And yeah, so this is the, let's say, this is the builder and the interactions and everything.
All this construction of contracts, addition of contracts to your UI components database, it happens through you, right? Like the protocols reach out to you, and you are the ones who create this. So creating this layer safeguard, right?
Currently, yes, but it's not the way it's meant to be, let's say, in the future. So we are going to make it a fully permissionless network where everybody will be able to add contracts, to create interaction. And that's the full vision. Like we are going to be a fully decentralized protocol ourselves. And everything we do is made to be decentralized. And this is why we have these attestations, for instance. The key thing is we bootstrap basically a knowledge base by verifying ourselves, and we are going to grant as well these roles to people we trust in the community, like how we are seeding, let's say, an initial web of trust in the Web3 blockchain community. And then we'll open it in a fully permissionless way to anyone. But of course, the attestations will matter. And you'll need a certain level of attestation before, let's say, it shows up to end users, or at least it shows without a banner saying this is a non-verified interaction. And yeah,
it has to have some degree of training wheels until you reach a maturity level where then the attestations can happen and be voted through a DAO or something, right? Or any other kind of entry barrier that you can put in there that is even more decentralized. How's the code for OKcontract right now? Are you open source, closed source? How does it work?
So a big chunk is open source already. And the most probably we will open source a lot of other things as well. So as we transition basically to a decentralized protocol, of course, every bit that we decentralize will be fully open source. So in the long run, maybe the only thing that can stay a bit like GitHub, the only thing that could stay not open source is the developer portal itself. Like of course, the whole nodes, the SDK, all the computation library, the language, of course, the compiler, everything will be fully open source. And maybe like GitHub, we'll just keep the portal itself, just at least to make sure it's the one trusted.
That's nice.
But we will deploy it on IPFS and IPNS, of course. So it will be a deployment of it as a built artifact, which will be decentralized itself. So it won't rely, let's say, the infrastructure and the runtime won't depend on us. But it's just like most probably we'll publish the source code as well, but we'll make it legally. It's the official one, or we'll see. We still have to figure out how we do it.
That's nice. I would like to take you to another topic in here, because I think you do have a very strong focus on developer experience, of course, and I think developer experience generates good user experience by transition, right? The developer that likes to do what they do, they simply have a easier time creating good things for users, right? So there are other topics that are very hot right now in terms of UX. There are account abstraction, bridging layers. I would like to know your thoughts on this. Like, how are these evolving? What changes do you see? If there are any key challenges that should be approached on these areas, and what's your feeling regarding those?
Oh, yeah. So first, account abstraction is a big change and a good change in the UX of the whole ecosystem. Like, if we want to grow from an initial, let's say, smaller community of end users who know their EOAs and who manage, let's say, our own security. It won't be the case for most of the users if we need to grow the ecosystem. And account abstraction is the nicest technical way to achieve this while maintaining a very good level of security. And I think the EF, so the Ethereum Foundation, is doing a really great job in that domain by making a really outstanding work, the whole ERC for 3370. And so basically, this means that from our standpoint, the UIs will need to change, because if you have smart accounts, you can bundle the transactions. You don't need, for instance, to have an approve button that you need to show to the user so they can approve, and then another button to deposit or whatever in the pool. You can just bundle the operations, and you just need to capture the user consent. And if you have sufficient proof that the user consent to something, then you can send this to the smart account, and the smart account will validate the transaction. And I think really in the future, this would be the way for most users to transact. And I think as well that having the specification of the interaction, the thing that we are providing at OKcontract, is helping a lot in that regard, because you'll be able to prove, for instance, using ZK proofs, that the transaction comes from this specification and has been built by this specification. And then the smart account can say, okay, I know how the transaction comes from. I know it's valid from the OKcontract network, which will be a decentralized network itself. So the smart account can allow this action on chain to happen, and without very few, let's say, or less user security, end user security. And as always, it's less security for the end user means a better UX.
Yeah, that's right. I think there are balances in everything, but there are some things that you don't even have to think about balance, right? You just go for them, and they are more or less than trade-offs and more of requirements. I think security is one of those in these cases. And when something changes from being something that you can act on as a trade-off and becomes more of a requirement, then it's not a trade-off anymore. It's the minimum stage that you have to be to have quality and good user experience. It's funny, but
yeah, exactly.
That's how it
right
works,
now,
I guess.
Yeah, and we need security. Without security, there's no blockchain. So
yeah, and I mean, security is also something that allows us to go everywhere, like bridging layers, messaging layers, interoperability, right? All of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So right now, I would like to propose you to go to our rapid fire questions. These questions are questions that you have to answer very fast with like one word, max one sentence. Don't think too much. I'll throw the question, you throw the answer, right?
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
So if you could change one thing about Web3 development, what would it be?
Honestly, front ends. That's why I'm doing this.
All right. So name a dApp you think more people should know about.
I think GMX as a perp DEX is a very good protocol, and I've met some people of the team, and they're true builders for 4 years. So I think that this should have.
Cool, man. What's a Web3 trend you think is overhyped right now?
A Web3 trend's overhyped. That's a good question. The current trends are pretty valid. It's hard to find one. What is overhyped? Give me suggest three choices.
Okay, ZK, interop, And let me think of another one. ZK, interop, and rollups.
Between the three, let's say rollups. Like we
Rollups?
have
Oh.
because they're already here, and of course, so probably now we need we have the chains already. So ZK, we need a lot of it. It's not overhyped, and we are considering using ZK in many places ourselves. It's very important way to decentralize our own protocol and make sure that the backend servers basically behind the front ends are going to be decentralized properly. And and interop is as well what end users want. It's the UX basically. You don't want to care about where the liquidity is, etc. As an end user, you want everything somehow aggregated. So that's let's say we are efficient as an ecosystem to find the good trends.
Fun. I'm a little bit biased, so I would say that of course I work in Cartesi, so I really like rollups as a role. But yeah, you have a point in that rollups are kind of established right now, right? It's no longer something new. Maybe I should have picked another one like fully homomorphic encryption, or because rollups is more of a reality, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So FHE is a part of MPC, and you need it somehow. But okay, maybe if we do everything with ZK snarks or starks, maybe.
I think we'll always have a problem of throughput right there. But once again, I'm biased. Anyway, going back to the questions. If not blockchain, which tech field would you focus on?
I don't want to answer AI here, okay? So let me try not to do AI, although it was my original background. Like I did AI research originally. I think I would try to be in biotech, but in the computing part of biotech.
Biotech, right. So what's your favorite Web3 meme or joke?
Mid curve.
Come again?
The left curve, mid curve, right curve.
All right.
Where basically the left and right always agree, and the mid curve is left alone crying.
So what's the best advice you've ever received about development?
Simple is better.
That's a nice one. I like it. So
thanks,
I want to go back after this rapid fire a little bit about the trends we were talking about, like ZK, rollup, obfuscation, FAG, MPC, everything you can think about that's coming in the future. What is that excites you the most?
The most between this, it's probably ZK, because I think that we're still figuring out what we can do fully. And it changes. What I like about it is it changes the assumptions of what you can trust, and where do you put the trust, and where do you verify the trust. And I'm saying this because we are coming basically from a Web 2 world where the front end is extremely dumb, and everything that matters happen on the back end. The security is on the back end. Let's say the verification, the process, the scalability, everything that matters is on the back end, and the front end is just the UI and it's painting basically. This is how it's perceived, and this is why as well there is a lot of front end vulnerabilities, as CF the top 10 or West. But I think that ZK can challenge a lot of this. Like, just to give you an example. So if we are building a decentralized protocol, you don't trust a client, the front end, not the node client, to give you a random ID, because it could cheat and it could give you an ID which is not random and somehow is messing whatever assumption you have on your data. And so the way, let's say, to do it without ZK, but still with crypto, is you have somehow on your backend a function that generates a random ID, and somehow you submit a signature, a cryptographic signature, saying, okay, this ID comes from me, it's a good one, I trust it. But with ZK, you can do a full client-side implementation, that the client gives you a random ID and the proof that it's random.
Interesting.
And
Yeah,
that changes everything.
I do think I do like ZK, but I think we're still trying to create a super weapon with ZK. That's my point of view. Might be wrong. Hot take here. I think we can use ZK for small things right now, which have a very good use and an immediate use that's very feasible. So in our new fraud proof that we just launched, the paper, we talk about how to use ZK as a mechanism that's helpful, but not necessarily doing everything on ZK, right? So you take a part of that computation and you run it on ZK. So this is something that really enhances the experience and helps with the whole process, right? So I really like ZK, but I have this feeling that people are trying to solve everything with ZK when we should use it more in specific parts. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being crazy and going on a rant here.
No, I fully understand basically what you say, is that you want to, ZK is very interesting, but you don't want to put it everywhere and every time. And if you over ZK it, basically, of course, you're going to add a lot of complexity to the one computing the proof, and basically for nothing. So you really need to identify exactly, as you say, the tiny bits where it matters. And it's just that it's interesting from an architectural point of view in systems to determine where you're using it and what can you change. But I fully agree that there are some, let's say, overly ZK.
Yeah, exactly. So Henry, we are starting to run out of time. So I would like to propose one last question for you, which is for you to share with us your vision. Like, what's your vision for Web3 in the next 5 years, and what challenges do you anticipate?
Yeah. So to me, the big thing, I would say, obviously, is the mainstream adoption. And I think that we're going for it. I think that 10 years from now, everybody will use blockchains for a lot more use cases than what we do today. It won't be just a DeFi or NFT or whatever. I think that ticketing, everything related to government services, everything that needs and requires trust should be and probably will be on chain. It solves a lot of problems, and I think that's this. But to do this, we're going to have seamless interoperability between all the different chains, the different assets, and to achieve this as well, we also need to have a very good UX. Like it needs to be simple and secure for the end users. So that's I would say some of the challenges ahead. And what's your take?
That's great. Oh, for me specifically, well, I do think we will have a very hard time explaining to people what they actually should be. Sorry.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you. What they should actually be building on Web3. Because I think, and not only on Web3, but on each protocol and each piece of the stack. Because I think people are looking right now for silver bullets, and there are no silver bullets. And yeah, I think this is a very big issue that we're gonna be going against. And the other one is when interoperability is actually needed. I think everyone's running after it like crazy, and some parts, just like CK, there are moments where we have to apply it, and moments that we don't. I don't know. It's just based on lots of discussions that I heard on DevCon on Bangkok in the last month. I'm still processing everything that's new. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that DevCon was packed and dense. A lot of discussions there as well.
Exactly, but
Even though we didn't meet there, we knew each other a bit before DevCon, of course. But we didn't bump into each other there.
Yeah, I should have met. I was in the super learning mode, so I was running from panel to keynote to lecture to everything that I could to absorb as much knowledge as I could. I think DevCon has this impact where most events is about networking. DevCon, I took a step back and I said, okay, I'm gonna use this to learn. Actually, I'm gonna go for the main event here. But yeah, next time we definitely have to meet at the next event.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, that was great. Henry, thank you very much for being here. If you have any last message, anything you want to say, any advice you want to give, or stage is yours.
Oh, but nothing but thanks a lot, João. And happy to see you soon. And for the listeners, I hope you have a good time. Feel free to reach out to both of us if you have let's say any question or feedback, or that's it.
I know I had a great time, so thank you so much for coming. And that's it. That was iBuilder 4 AM. Keep building and pioneering the world of Web3. Thanks a lot, Henry. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, João. Bye-bye.